Good evening to everybody. I'm here today with Walter Lübeck, and this is the after masterclass, post masterclass interview that I have always with the teachers that come and attend our masterclasses. And so I'm happy to be here with you, Walter, and welcome to this interview. And today I will bring you some questions. I wanted to say that the masterclass that you had was really very interesting, and I had very positive feedbacks about the attendees that was there, and it was really very passionate, the arguments that you bring. And so based on it, I would like to make you some questions, and maybe go a bit more deeper inside the arguments that you already bring in the masterclass. Well, I would like to start in the masterclass. You was tell us that at a certain point you went in the Reiki group, maybe of Takata's students, and you made them some questions, or maybe some uncomfortable questions, and they had a very bad reaction against you, like you don't have to ask, or no, what you're asking. And you don't think that this attitude, I don't know how many years ago it was, but today, 2022, you don't think that a bit this attitude in a certain Reiki groups or ambient still is like this, that in a way you don't have to ask, you don't have to bring questions that maybe are uncomfortable, that maybe breaks a bit the beliefs they have about Reiki. And you have this feeling too, or it was just maybe there and now we had a different evolvement about the Reiki ambient? What do you think about it?
First of all, thank you, Graziano, for inviting me. That's a wonderful opportunity to share my thoughts and my research about Reiki and Uzui and Takata and Hayashi. You see, this event happened in 1989, and there were master teachers, lots from the States, but also from several places in Central Europe. And they belong to an international organization which still exists, and the grandmaster of this organization was there. And I just asked about a student's question. I had a student, she's a veterinary doctor, and when the horses had colics, she gave them the homeopathic remedy Nux vomica in a potency of, I think, D4 or D6 something, relatively deep. And it worked good. And she had the experience that when she treated additionally the horses with Reiki, the Nux vomica stopped to work. So it just was like she did not give them the remedy. Now, this was interesting for me, and I thought, I'm a master teacher. I taught this lady, and I have no answer. So I brought this question into the group of these masters, whether there were about, I don't know, 3-4 dozen people, maybe more. And it was question time, so we all were invited to make questions. I did this question after several other people did their questions. And after I made the question, everybody started to shout, to yell, So, and I thought I missed something, that there was something going on which I didn't get. So I just made the question again. So they were yelling again, the whole room, all the people. And then I did not make the question anymore. Other people made questions and they got answers, but they were nice questions, so to say. And then when we were going to lunch, one of the older masters took me aside and said, we don't make these kind of questions. We trust Reiki. And I thought, what the heck is going on there? Is this a church or what? So this was my experience. And during the next years, there were plenty of similar experiences. So this was when I stepped out of that organization. But still, this organization has a tremendous influence on many people. And the let's say, the structure of ideas which they brought around in the Reiki community is still very, very present. And yes, a few years ago, with an organization in Germany, which is full with people from that international organization, I had very similar experiences. And I think this is not good for helping Reiki to stay alive, to survive, to spread its wonderful values and its wonderful spiritual healing all around, because asking questions and doing research is what brings us further. So when I realized back in 1989 that the so-called masters would not answer my questions, instead they would be shocked, they would be frightened, I thought I have to do my own research. You see, I'm coming from a background of martial arts. I studied martial arts since the age of 8. Judo, karate, different kung fu styles, aikido, tai chi chuan, and so on. So I came to know masters of these martial arts, which often are also qigong masters. So they know about energy, of course. And when such a tiny guy, let's say like aikido master with 1.50 meter height, comes into a room and smiles, the room is full with the personality, the charisma, the energy. And when you make a question, you get a good answer. They show you something. And then they give you some literature to read or some questions to think about. So that's a master. But what I was seeing there back in 1989 or in other gatherings is not what a master is. A master is there to teach an apprentice, a journeyman, to get better. How could I if I fear questions? So for me, a question is a bridge to the future. It's a bridge to a new land. This is why I developed Rainbow Reiki. And this is why I use the name Rainbow Reiki instead of traditional Uzui Reiki. During the first years of my professional life as a Reiki master teacher, I labeled what I did as traditional Uzui Reiki. Then I was thinking more and I did more research. And I thought after a while, I have developed so many new methods which bring tremendous good to the Reiki practitioners. And you cannot find this anywhere else. So I cannot label what I do with Uzui Reiki or traditional Uzui Reiki. And let's face it, at that time I realized there is no traditional Uzui Reiki. No, ever will be traditional Uzui Reiki. Why? Because traditional means that people, many people, do something in a very similar way over a long period of time. And there is not much where we could say this is done since Uzui's time in a very similar way. There are initiations, there are symbols, there is laying on of hands. That's it. But the initiations, I've traveled all over the world. I've been in, I don't know, 20 countries, something. And I've seen hundreds of Reiki masters from different schools perform. And they have 500 different styles of initiation. And then you look into the books, and that's the worst. Because there are some books who published initiations, which makes them sell very good. But the initiations in there definitely have no connection to what Uzui, Hayashi, and Takada did. So this is something where people started to use this instead of what they have learned, which often is not very, very good. And so the whole thing was getting more obscure. So I can understand very easily that people who studied yoga or Qigong for years think, ah, come on, I don't need Reiki. Because the Reiki teachers, they don't know their stuff. If I ask them, they don't know what to say. They don't know what to do. So yes, I found out that there is a part of the Reiki community, still a large part, which fierce questions, which fierce research. And I built my whole Rainbow Reiki system with over 20 different kinds of classes on research and development. So whenever I was running into a situation where what I studied, what I learned with Reiki did not help the client, or when a student came to me and said, well, Master, I had this kind of client with that kind of problem, and I used what you told me, and it didn't work. I started to do research because I think Uzui wanted to heal, Hayashi wanted to heal, Takata made her living with healing. So Reiki is about spiritual healing. So I should find out how Reiki would do the healing, would perform the healing also in this situation. And in many cases, I got something new and exciting. So the healing process was going on. But there is a kind of Reiki renaissance happening since the end of the 90s. That means more and more people internationally are waking up and thinking there must be more in Reiki. So, and I hope that this part of the Reiki community will grow and make questions and find answers. That's what I'm hoping.
This is an interesting point, and I would like to develop a bit this part, because maybe the issue is exactly this. You have to trust Reiki, okay? And another issue is, can we talk about Reiki formation? It's that really a training that can be passed in 1 day or 2 days. So it can be, the problem could be this, is a question. On one side, they say, okay, I just have to trust the Reiki. He will do everything, okay? So why I need to learn some things, or I don't know, study some things, go deeper inside to something? I'm just a channel. Reiki pass, he will do his stuff. On the other side, if you are lucky, you get mastered maybe in 3 seminars, 2 days, 1 day, and maybe other 2 days. So we have masters that maybe study in a way formal, maybe 5-6 days. And so this is a big lack. And it's normal that when you go talk with these people and you make them some questions, they are completely in difficulties. They don't know what to answer. And so the best answer is, you have to trust Reiki, because you are just a channel. You don't have to know. Your ego is what is asking, and all this stuff, So it could be this a bit, the reason why this still large part of Reiki practitioners don't really develop, don't go forward. They stay there in this.
Yeah, exactly. Graciano, that is exactly what I experienced. See, this thing, trust Reiki, is really buhai. It's superstition. And it's not authentic. The same people who tell you need to trust Reiki, you should put your ego aside and allow Reiki to do whatever it wants, even if it does not want to do anything. They study other healing methods. They study shiatsu, they study shamanism, they study aromatherapy, and so on, and they use it for clients because Reiki doesn't do the job. And the clients don't want to hear that kind of BS. They don't want to hear, you need to trust Reiki, and if it doesn't heal, there is no healing available. Because yes, there is healing available. And yes, you just did not learn enough about Reiki to make it happen with Reiki. So you studied shamanism, you studied, I don't know, family constellation or crystal work or whatsoever, which is great. But just having the nerve to say, well, you need to trust Reiki, and if you want to do some development with Reiki, that you can do the job of healing here, then it's your ego. But at the same time, they use flower essences and crystals because Reiki cannot do the job. This is not authentic, and I see this all over the place. It's going on all the time. So what I did is always, I try to find a way to do the job with Reiki. Mm-hmm. And let's face it, Reiki is neither intelligent, nor can you trust it, because you could trust a person. A person is intelligent. Reiki is an energy. So when I came to Hong Kong in the year 2000, on my journey to do more research about the roots of Reiki before Usui, I was meeting some Qigong masters. You know, not the masters who just made a 2-day training, what you mentioned, but they had a training since childhood. And they know Kung Fu, they know Chinese medicine, they know Neigong, they know Qigong, and so on and so on. So I came to them because of my martial arts contacts. And I asked them, see, there is this Reiki thing. And they said, I don't know what Reiki is, but let me see the kanji, let me see the letter. And then I was writing the letter and they said, oh, you mean Ling Chi? I said, well, whatever you think. So Ling Chi, they said, is the energy which is the quartermaster for Shen Qi, the divine Qi. So if you want to invite the divine, you use Reiki, you use Ling Chi. Why? Because Ling Chi helps you to have more natural, more divine change of yin to yang, yang to yin, of one of the 5 elements into the other. And the more smoother that goes, the more easy it is for you by meditation, Qigong, and just by a certain lifestyle to come closer with your own being to divine. And it said, well, is Reiki then a being? They laughed. They said, well, Reiki is an energy. It flows through certain channels, not the same channels as which you use for acupuncture, but there are channels which have the capacity to channel these kind of non-polar energies. But it's not a being, it's an energy. It's like Shen Qi is an energy. The divine emanates this, like divine emanates everything. So if you would call this divine and the other you would not call divine, this is no logical conclusion, because divine is everything virtually. So that helped me a lot, and that contributed to the book which I authored, a big book of Reiki symbols, because I thought it's important that those Reiki people who want to study Reiki, they know more about the energy. So trusting Reiki does not make any sense. And it does not make sense to say, if Reiki would not heal you, then you cannot be healed, because it's nonsense. This is why Usui and Takata and Hayashi, they wrote books. They taught their students how to use Reiki for specific purposes. They did not say, none of these 3, trust Reiki. I've never seen any mention of this. Instead, they said, learn about anatomy, learn about physiology. Before Hayashi accepted Takata for a Reiki 1 training, he said, you need to study in a distant training program the anatomy and physiology of a human, otherwise you don't understand what I'm teaching. And then he made her treat people in his clinic, kind of clinic. And he was guiding her and explaining, and so did Usui. And Takada also was teaching this to some students, not as good as Hayashi, but she did not have the background. Well, and if you look at that, you see that a lot has been lost, and this has been lost because there was this fairy tale stuff about Usui was a Christian monk and that you don't have to write anything about Reiki and so on. And this also, in my understanding, compromised formations, Reiki formations. You see, Takata did not have, as far as my research goes, a real teacher formation. She said, come to my classes, and then she had a 2-day training, and she did not offer written material, and said to people, if you cannot remember the master symbol, or if you cannot remember how to initiate people, then, well, you are not spiritually developed enough. And then they paid $10,000 in the 70s, which was a hell of a lot of money at that time. So a formation in Reiki, or let's say my Rainbow Reiki system, which is based on well-researched Usui Reiki, I differentiate. If people come to me who say, I want to use Reiki in the family area, I want to use it for myself, for my family members, we have a kind of first aid thing in our hands. Well, then I tell them, come to my 1st degree and 2nd degree classes. And it would be a good idea to revisit these both classes 2 times, 3 times. I have a special program for that, so people can get access to the classes much cheaper. So if they say, you see, I'm thinking about opening a practice, treating people, I tell them, if you want to do that, that's wonderful for me. And then you should go into a study program, which will keep you busy about 1.5 to 2 years. And it's about, well, it depends individually, but about 600 hours of training and about 100 documented treatments for different other people, not the same person. And about some dozen of teaching videos, which I have recorded. And then they can record each webinar. So they can look into each of the webinars and watch it again and again and again. And they are also, they don't have to do that, but I support that they get together with other students and exchange treatments, and that they discuss things. And then they have special sessions with me where they get their questions answered and where I help them to use what they have learned for their special personality development and so on. That is what I call a healer's training. Am I satisfied with this? No, because I know what I can teach in 1.5 to 2 years, which is way beyond what most masters ever come to know about Reiki. But is it what you could know about Reiki? No, it is a tiny, tiny little bit. So this is why if they want to go for a master, and I have 3 master levels in Rainbow Reiki, the first master level, they have to come first to the master healer class, which I just explained, which is 1.5 to 2 years. They could do parallel, but most do it afterwards, another 1.5 to 2 years with another 500, 600 hours of training to become a master teacher, to train people in 1st degree, 2nd degree, and 4 other classes which are special to Rainbow Reiki. Because I think if they go out there and study not only for themselves, they want students to teach. So the students have someone who can answer their questions, help them to make the best out of Reiki, which is a wonderful energy, the great practice which Usui left us. Then they need more than some classes. And when I hear people said, I had a very good master training, it was 2 full days, I think, gosh, you did not learn anything. You just were able to memorize, maybe, how to initiate people, maybe. But you have no idea what you're doing. It's not possible in 2 days. So when I was trained, my formation was about 1.5 years. And at that time, this was a lot. But during this formation, when I was there from 1987 to 89, I also understood, because I had martial arts training and related insight into how to bring up people and educate them, what was lacking. So when I started to teach people to become masters, I was adding more and more into the training, which I thought is necessary if you want to teach people honestly and seriously to be good practitioners. So that's my idea about the formations for Reiki.
Yes, I think it's very important to structure the formation, you know. There are some information that belongs to Reiki and some other additional information that I think are needed as background to go and really work with people, because work with people is anyway a responsibility. And you have to know, you have to know some stuff, you know, some basic information you have to bring with you, apart all the Reiki information that you need to gather. And I have a consideration that I don't know if you agree with it. I think when you start to study some things, you know, that it goes a bit in the spiritual way, energy way, you know, then the first part, you structure yourself, you know, you need to gather information that brings you in a way, in a playground that helps you to understand the context. But then when you go forward, you have to destructure it again, okay? Yes. You have to make your own research to have a deeper understanding about it. And then when you go more forward, maybe you will find other people that comes from other paths, from other systems, okay, that don't have to be Reiki, that finally you find the same common ground, you know? Finally say, okay, it's like something universal that is up on this pyramid, okay, that when you go down has a lot of systems, but then when you go up, this is a common ground in which you found same theories and practice, maybe said in another way, made in another way, but the essence is the same. I just wanted to add this. I don't know if you agree with it, if it happens to you, because I talk maybe with others and they say the same stuff, and I had the feeling they did Reiki and they said, no, I never did Reiki, but they said almost the same that maybe we are talking about when we are discussing. So I wanted to go forward about this formation because I think this is a very important topic. I think that Reiki needs really to shift to a more structured formation, you know. And now the big issue after COVID is this online courses online that everybody is no. What you are thinking about? Is this really that bad? This online teaching, online training is really this the devil that you have to avoid. What do you think about it?
You see, Graziano, in a way, I have to laugh about that topic. Another way, seen from another point of view, it's sad. I have to laugh about it because all over the world, in business, in esoterics, psychology, name it, people do online trainings. And yes, it got more intense during the coronavirus crisis. But when I was teaching extensively in India, people asked me, why don't you do this online? We are used to have that online. And this was what, 2005, 2006, 2007. So at that time in India, even if they had a clay hut, they had a very good Wi-Fi system, and they had the computers, and they had the speakers and phones and whatever you need to do online classes. And that wasn't the thing to do, because they said we cannot travel that far in our country. We don't have the highways and so on like you do in the West. And we have the internet system, and so we don't have to spend so much time, and we don't have to spend so much money. We just can be with our family, and we can get the trainings. The Indian gurus were doing that. They started in the year 1998, I say they because there were several of them, different schools, to do online presentations via satellite. At that time, internet wasn't working that well, but they did it via satellite. So they were teaching people all over the world because they said, well, we cannot be everywhere, but we can be broadcasted. Now, about 2 years ago, there is this guy, Anthony Robbins, who does a good job in training people. He does kind of psychological training thing. And this lady, she hosted for many, many years talk shows in America. And they both were doing a webinar together for several million people. Million. One webinar. Now, all over the world, people are doing this, and they just got used to do things via Zoom. They got used to use a whiteboard and prepare videos and so on, and do demonstrations. But in the Reiki world, I heard things like, Reiki does not want that. I asked myself, how do they get an audience to ask Reiki something? I even don't know whom to ask what Reiki wants to know. Yeah, but Reiki does not want that. So that means they think that Reiki does not want that. That's a human thing. It had nothing to do with Reiki. Then they said, it's not traditional. How could it be traditional if Usui Hayashi Takata did not have any internet? And by the way, as I mentioned before, there is no traditional Reiki. Then a very good argument was, you see, when we initiate people in a room, we make everything dark, and then you see Reiki glow. And this is why we don't do distant initiations. And I thought, so because you want to see people glow, you don't give classes during 2 years where people need Reiki so much. During coronavirus crisis, they really needed it. I had full classes because people said, we need to learn to come down. We need to release stress. We need to get into a better shape. We need to get back to sleep. Please give us a Rainbow Reiki 1 class so we can study this and come back into a more peaceful zone. And they did. So when people think, yeah, I want to see students glow when I initiate them, I ask myself, am I a master to entertain myself, or am I a master to teach students how to heal themselves? So they can do whatever they want. But telling that you should not do it, it's no good, is different from, I prefer not to do it. If they said, I prefer not to do it, that's fine for me, because everybody needs to walk his or her own path. But if they say, Reiki does not want that, I think that is superstition. It's abracadabra, buhai. Yeah. So I give classes online since 2008. I gave hundreds of these kind of classes. I gave them from my home office, from my center. I gave them from international airports and from hotel rooms and so on, because it works. Everybody was able to attend. I did not give Reiki classes because I didn't have to. But then came Corona, and I thought, from 1 week to another, I trained my masters how to do that, and I did. I made them qualify. They had to qualify for doing Zoom classes. So they know how to give a Zoom class, they know how to handle the technology and so on. And they did. And since that moment, we flipped completely to giving online classes with excellent results. So I allowed my students to record the classes. So I tell them, now please take down the number of the hour and the minute where I said this and that, so you can directly forwind and watch it again. And they are grateful because now they have a 2 days class with about 18 hours teachings. And they can look it up back and forth and study it again and again, and they convince their neighbors and their friends and their family that this is good stuff, because they can show it to them, which of course is not really what I want, but I know they do it and it's okay for me. And so I got great results. Do I have a kind of guarantee that online initiation works? Yes, because I did it in dozens of classes. My students did it in dozens and dozens of classes. And I know colleagues from other schools who also do it online. And well, come on, we do distant Reiki healings, and everybody knows that this works. I did this with Professor Ignatov in 2012, 2014, with I think close to 100 Rainbow Reiki students all over the world, from Argentina, United States, different places in Europe, and so on. And we treated water and stuff in the laboratory of Professor Ignatov somewhere in Bulgaria. And we had all this wonderful scientific documentation. So I know that distant healing with Rainbow Reiki works like hell. And if the distant healing works, we could do distant initiation. Now in Rainbow Reiki, we have a special way of initiation because I use the initiation I studied, I learned with my teacher, and then with the knowledge which I have and with my clairvoyancy, I build up on that, because at the beginning, people were going into emotional crisis states. Then I was stabilizing during the initiation, third chakra better, no crisis state anymore. And so I also developed new techniques. So people learn in first degree Rainbow Reiki, a distant healing modality, not from the second degree. It's just the original Rainbow Reiki thing, signature method. But that means people in first degree can treat each other over online contact in the breakout rooms like they do in second degree. So they can also have team work, team energy work, and have the experience that it really has an effect. And of course, they have plenty of time to exchange the treatments. And with the excellent results they get, they have very much trust to get into second degree and other Rainbow Reiki classes because they make proof it works. So if it's Usui Reiki without the special modality, still, I don't think there is anything wrong with giving an online class in first degree. Why? Because placing the hands on certain parts of the body, you do not have to study at the university. A 5-year-old child can do it. It's not that difficult. Get yourself a teddy bear. You can do it on your own body. You can do it on your spouse's body. You can do it on your children, on your neighbor, on your friend, whatsoever. It's not really difficult to place your hands somewhere on the body. That's easy to understand. So if this is easy to understand, we have, let's say, a very big thing already covered in first degree. Then meditation. Do I have to sit in a group to meditate? No. I did online meditation since, 15 years something. And it works like hell. We did wonderful group meditation over 3 continents. It's amazing, the energy. So you don't need to sit together in a room to meditate. Do you need to sit in a room together when discussing the 5 principles of Usui, which I consider to be very important? No, because you can hear, you can say, you can watch what is going on. It's very intense. It's very focused on something, and people don't have to pollute the environment because they don't go by plane, by train, by car. They don't have to book hotel rooms for much money. They don't have to eat in restaurants, which is not so good food, and it costs a hell of a lot of money. They stay at home. They are with their loved ones. So this is really good organization. Mm-hmm. And this is why I prefer today giving online classes. It serves the people. It serves the environment. It's green Reiki training, so to say. And I can do nearly everything which I could do when we were together in the same room, including the Byosen. So people told me, you cannot feel Byosen if you're not together with someone in a room. Of course you can. Treat your own body, you will feel Byosen. If you treat the shoulder, most people have Byosen in the shoulders. So, and with the Rainbow Reiki distant healing modality in first degree, they can even feel it over the distance. But with Usui Reiki first degree, they can do it too on their own body. They can do it in the break with the husband, with the wife, with the child, with the neighbor, and so on. So this is no big deal to feel Byosen. You don't have to be in one room with that. So I think this is just a prejudice that people don't want to do something new. They want to stick with what they already did, and they don't want to learn about Zoom and related platforms. And I love them. I love them because they help everybody to get access to Reiki.
Yes, I think another issue can be that some things is have a class in which people sit in a room and you can manage much better the time, and you can maybe involve them. You talk, now we do this, now we do that, and now what do you think? And even the context brings people maybe to be more distract even, maybe I talk with him. But when you are online, 2 hours, maybe it's 2 hours in which you have to talk and you have to engage the interest of the people. And if you don't have contents, you will have a big difficulties to make, for example, a masterclass, or I don't know, a course that maybe now in these 2 years, I made a lot of online courses in 5 days. Every evening I got, the first level was 5 days. The second level was also 6 days. And I had a very positive experience. I teach Reiki to a lot of people, and a lot of them was master or people that attend present classes, and they were surprised about how deep you can go. And yes, all what you said, I could say, if you could listen to what I said, it's exactly, I was laughing because I said, okay, we are saying the same stuff. And it's because it's really like this. You know, my thesis was exactly about telemedicine, telepsychotherapy, telepsychology.
Great.
And there too, you know, the biggest problem was that psychologists, they was not fit to use this instrument.
Exactly.
But they demonstrated that it works even better on some sickness than in presence. And yes, someone that is depressed, you don't have to go in a car or take a bus or go in with the train. The cost goes down. You don't have to stay in the line waiting that is your turn. You can do it in your home. So it has a lot of benefits. And yes, also it get record. You can watch it again whenever you want. In a normal class, if you don't catch the point, it finished. If you don't write it, you lost.
Yes.
And okay, you anticipate the other questions about this distant remote initiation, and you answer there also. And okay, Takata did it, and we have the documents, and that she did it. She wrote letters in which she mentioned that she did that. So this is really prejudice. It's just this. They don't want to accept that we are evolving, that energy is moving, that we are not anymore in the 90-10 or 90-50, that we are now into 2022, and Reiki shifting is evolving, and we are evolving with Reiki. This is very important. So, and this is my last question that I want to make you. How you imagine the future of Reiki?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question, Graziano, and I thought a lot about it. And in fact, I also did years of research about how modern New Age, esoteric, spiritual ideas were evolving. Where did they come from? What are the sources which then were coming together, creating a kind of rope of what we know today? And I also did this kind of research about Usui's Reiki, because Usui did not come from nowhere. So when you are in the Reiki community, you often get the impression that Reiki was invented by Usui. Usui invented it all, and that's wrong. He invented a tiny little bit, but he was a genius in putting things together and making them, let's say, workable for people which had no extensive background and no wish or no ability to spend years and years of training. So this, in my understanding, is the real contribution of Usui, not the energy, because it was in use millennia before Usui. Not the symbols. The symbols, in a way or another, were already around, and so on. But let's look into the future of Reiki. You see, over the years, especially since the end of the 90s, beginning of the 2000s, a lot of new healing modalities were getting into the market, like quantum healing, theta healing. And the British are very good with the spiritual healing modalities and so on. Just to name a few, there are much more. And most, if not all of them, are light years ahead of what you could do with the usual Usui Reiki. So if you put someone with theta healing training, which is a very good formation with years of training, and you put then a teacher of Usui Reiki in the same room, the Usui Reiki teacher has not much to do, not much to say in comparison to the theta healing teacher. And the same goes for other modalities. It's not always such a good training, and it fades out, of course, if you get into groups far away from the people who invented that. But still, Usui Reiki is way behind what is going on in today's practical esoterics. But this is not because Reiki cannot do the job. It is because people don't want to change their ways. In the end of the 80s, beginning of the 90s, it was a big thing to get healing hands within a weekend, and another weekend, or let's say that at that time it was half a day, you learn to transmit energy over distance. That was a very big thing. 10, 15 years later, this is something people learn in public societies. We have an institution called Volksschule, People's School, which covers lots of different topics, and they can learn it over there. They can learn it from books. So it's no big deal anymore. Still, there are things like helping to align the spine, to even the pelvis, to delete allergies, and to restore immune system, and so on and so on. There are many, many things which you could do, and other healing modalities are doing that. But in Reiki, it is like they have stayed in the medieval ages. Now in Rainbow Reiki, we do it different. I think you do it different too. We are looking for ways how to do the job with Reiki. And mind you, not because we don't want people to go to the doctor. Of course, they should go to the psychotherapist, to the medical doctor, and do what they advise you, and maybe you surprise them by a very early healing. So what we do is not alternative. It is complementary.
Yes.
And with these complementary things, I think we create a future for Reiki. I've seen this with other people, a few, not very much, but some, who also develop, who look into things, who try to solve problems. And this builds a bridge for Reiki for the future, because the energy Reiki and the basic ideas, the basic structures like initiation, like the symbols and so on, this is a genial thing. We just have to develop it. And we need to do better all the time, because this is what life always wants us to do. Yoga today is not what yoga has been 500 years ago. Qigong today is not what Qigong has been 100 years ago. And so goes the martial arts. Look into martial arts 100 years ago and today. There are worlds different then. Now, if Reiki should have a future, and I hope that it has, then we need to ask questions, do research and development like everybody else who is honest and serious about what they are doing, and find ways to help people to have a good life, to have a better life, to stay healthy, to get healthy. And this will help people to get fascinated by Reiki and study Reiki. And so Reiki will go on. Reiki will fade away if this storytelling is going on. Yeah, Reiki is intelligent, trust Reiki, and just place your hands somewhere and wait. If it happens, it is meant to happen. If it not happens, it's meant not to happen, and so on. If this goes on, Reiki will fade away, and we don't see a future. And I would be very sad. I would be very sad, because Reiki as an energy does not deserve this. The Usui heritage does not deserve this. This is a great heritage, but we have to do a renaissance for Reiki. There is a quote in German. I say it first in German, then in English. Was du erbst von deinen Vätern, erwirbst um es zu besitzen. What you get as a heritage from your parents, you need to build up on your own to really make it your own.
Mm.
And I think this is what we need to do.
Yes, I completely agree on this point with you. I really don't see a future for Reiki if this magical thinking, this mystical thinking continue to be predominant. And we really need to switch. Everybody has to do his part in the concept that in the context he can do it. For example, now I'm teaching in the hospital. I'm teaching Reiki in the hospital.
Very good.
And I made research to try to understand, is it placebo or it's something else? So everybody has to put his small piece to build up this big Reiki wall. And because Reiki really deserves it, as you said, it's a big heritage, but we really need to let go we have to destructure it a bit, and we have to stop to watch backwards and always think what was and decide to be part of the future of it. And this is my, how I can say, my intent and it's what is my aim actually in the Reiki practice that I'm doing, teaching. I have projects and I will bring them forward. And yes, and watch it was, and I had other interview with other masters, and I think they agree too. They are also in this line, and so we really need to bring this message also. If nobody talk about it, and everybody has fear to say some things, because the Reiki ambient is really sometimes really bad. Because they really marginate you, they kick you out of the groups when you are not doing what they want, or you are not in the line with what they teach. I listened to some phone calls that they record about the Reiki master. It was really shameful. I felt ashamed, believe me. And this happens, there is a big manipulation, a lot of use the suffering of people for their own benefits and manipulate them, suggest stuff that really are out of the head, out of the world. And so I think important people like you, for example, you're famous, you wrote a lot of books, you need to stand up and bring this information. So I'm very thankful for you to really, in a very free way, you said what you think, and I wish this interview can awake some conscious and maybe be a seed that can bring people to think about it, and that Reiki can be different than what was told or what we think it is. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Graziano.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
It was very nice interview. Thank you. See you.